And the UK as he heads back from the Women's World Cup. England lost in the final to Spain, of course. That is righty, looking a little dejected, sitting next to Emma Hayes, the Chelsea women's manager. But he will be here next week, and he will have cheered up by then as the stadium started to empty at the end of the Women's World Cup final. But he's missed most of the Premier League weekend. He will, of course, be back in time to watch Arsenal against Crystal Palace. But he also missed that game for Chelsea, where they were beaten by West Ham. And Mauricio Pochettino said afterwards, it was one of those games where you're sort of scratching your head as to how the scoreline ended up that way. Do you have some sympathy with that point of view?
I do and I don't. It almost like they reverted back to Chelsea of last season, where they have all the possession, they create all the opportunities, and yet they've not got anyone to finish them off. Now, I know they've dipped into the transfer market. They're bought in, probably the wrong word to use, but
big handful.
Yeah, they've completely ripped open the transfer, the market, and they've put it around in their pocket and bought in players, but they haven't bought in a finisher. Now, Nicholas Jackson's a good player, does a lot of good work outside of the box, makes good runs, intelligent runs, but again, it goes back to that issue they had last season. The balls are going into the box, they've got no one off to finish it. Now, in games like that you saw against West Ham, when you're on top in a game, if you don't score in that period, it can come back to bite you, and it's happened to Chelsea time and time again last season, and it looks like it's happened again this season.
Well, what did you make of that Chelsea performance? It feels like they're not too far away, but at times that feels like a mile.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad performance, and it wasn't a great performance. It was in between. They had enough possession to have created more. They needed to create more, and they haven't got a finisher anyway at the moment. So everyone's got to score goals. No forwards yet has scored for them. So far, it's come from a defender and a midfield player, the two goals that they've got. So they have got a problem, there's no doubt about it. They have got to dip their hand back into that transfer market again if they're going to go on and do what they need to do to get in that top four this year. Some of the play was good, the build-up play. They'll dominate games against certain teams, maybe West Ham. What will they do against the top teams, I think, is a still big question mark. But it's about end product football. If you have possession, you've got to have end product with it. And they didn't have it on the day. I think the penalty miss was a big turning point. I think if they go down the tunnel with that tucked under their belt, I think you see a different Chelsea maybe in the second half. Yeah,
because at that stage, they would have been 2-1 up and going in with a very different mentality. And obviously there was the injury to Chukwuemeka, and then they were sort of forced into, not forced, but there was a tactical substitution at half-time to try and cope with the loss of him. They are looking for a striker. I mean, it's not exactly a saturated market. There are a lot of buyers and very few products out there for them to go and look for.
Yeah, absolutely. And for a team that have spent a lot of money, I mean, there was the opportunity to bring in the likes of Dusan Vlahovic from Juventus, a player who would have actually filled the box and allowed for all those chances to be converted efficiently. But they do still have the Lukaku weapon that they will sell and perhaps bring in a striker, really, because that is what is missing. When you are a team that can manage over 70% possession, and you're creating a lot of high-quality chances and not converting, that is going to prove to be an issue. But I wouldn't be too downbeat. I think this is a side that's newly constructed. A lot of these players, like Moses Caicedo, has just arrived. It's going to take a lot of time to really embed it, and I think especially Pochettino is somebody who takes time to sort of teach his systems, teach his schemes, and then we'll see that sort of bring in and come into fruition around December or January. And I think that's when we'll start seeing Chelsea. I don't know how far or how they've managed themselves along the way, because they don't want to drop too many points while they're trying to find their rhythms. But I do think that there's a lot to be hopeful for. I just wonder from a psychological point of view if losses like that, especially, will start to have an effect on them.
Do you know, I do wonder about this Lukaku situation. If you're Pochettino, I wonder if he's looking at that thinking, I understand what's happened with Lukaku, but if you're looking for someone to finish chances off, he's been very good over the years. I mean, he's scored a lot of goals in the Premier League, and where else he's been Belgium's all-time record goal scorer. I understand what's come before him, but you're scratching around looking for a centre-forward. Yeah. There's one there. Surely they can patch that.
You've got to compare him to what is available perhaps out there and what he can do. All right, you'd have to sit down with him and really talk and communicate with him mentally to get the best out of him. But, yeah, I don't think there's anyone out there probably at this moment in time that would go ahead of him. If he was, you know, if Lukaku was out there and he wasn't a Chelsea player, I'm sure he'd be on the list of bringing him into the club. So he's already, you know, under their belt. He's already in the building. We could see him. We could see him in a Chelsea shirt still.
It just seems strange to have someone who has scored a lot of goals just to sit there for the whole season and do nothing. Because I know he wants to go to Inter Milan or Juventus or somewhere, but if that doesn't happen and you're Pochettino and you're seeing all this possession and you're not creating opportunities, surely you go to him and just say, listen, I know you don't want to be here, and I get it, the fans will be on his back because of the interview that he done and the way he's conducted himself. But we all know in football, like, fans are quick to forget, aren't they?
Couple of goals,
and it's all of a sudden he's the hero
and
again.
it's a different manager, so it's a different,
exactly.
a different sort of situation he'd be going into. But you know the Italian league very well, Mino. Is there an opportunity for him to go to Inter, to go to Juventus? Do they want him?
I mean, he's basically shot himself in the foot because Inter did want to bring him back. And he said it seemed like he had started negotiations with Juventus, which seems very odd to me because Juventus are obviously the team that Inter hate the most. And so doing all those interviews in which you proclaimed your love for Inter to then go for their biggest rivals and wait until that opportunity came for you. They don't have money. They've spent so much money. They got deducted points. They had a lot of off-pitch problems. And they can't really bring him in unless they sell. So what they offered Chelsea is Dusan Vlahovic, but we would need Lukaku plus 40 because Vlahovic is young and considered to be, you know, the next superstar. And they declined the offer, which I found crazy because it's not... You're paying 115 for Moses Caicedo. We know you have the money, you know, and Vlahovic is somebody to, I would say, to really invest in, but they chose not to go for that. So I don't know whether he's planning on perhaps something at the very end of the market. They might just sell enough to bring in Lukaku Juventus, or Saudi is really the other, Saudi Arabia would be the other thing that many Italians think that's his choice, that he's waiting for that. He'll reject, but if it doesn't work out, then he'll go to Saudi Arabia in September.
I mean, you've mentioned Moses Caicedo there as well, and it was his debut for Chelsea. We know what he can do in the Premier League, so there's no question of him settling into a new league, but he is settling into a new team. It didn't go well for him, though, did it? It's not your ideal debut, and especially in front of the West Ham fans as well.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Away from home, they're under the cosh. Yeah, it was tough on him, but we can't judge him on that. One performance, or it was 20 minutes, wasn't it? But he's going to have to show some character because Chelsea do need points on the board, as Mina said. It's we're almost talking about Chelsea as we did with under Potter. Oh well, he's going to have time. He's got his ideas have got to get across. Well, Pochettino's, they're in the same boat, but the Chelsea fans at the moment are looking at the squad, looking at the strength of what they've brought in through the money they've brought in, and they're thinking, well, we've got to be showing more than this. Why are they not going to get a striker? They're going in for midfield players, but we need a striker. And it's lopsided at the moment, their transfer market. It's got to be said. But Caicedo is going to be a major asset, and we'll put him... I think him and Enzo in that centre of midfield will challenge any other club in the midfield area. That is a very top quality midfield couple in there. And I think you'll see the best of Chelsea probably around about November to December once Poch gets in there and really gets some press in and play. It's very interesting. He's never played really a back three. Poch at Tottenham, at Paris Saint-Germain, and he's gone in with a back three at the moment with Chelsea. And I think you'll see him go into a four eventually and then play how he wants to play, how he normally plays in the Premier League. Because the Premier League is a different league. It really is.
And he talked a bit about that as well, about the sort of flexibility, because he's trying to get the players to do that at times in games. So it might just be a kind of soft progression for Chelsea from maybe the three that he feels is safer to the four that he wants to play. But what are your thoughts on Caicedo's debut? Because we'll talk Brighton a little bit later on. And Brighton fans will have been watching Moses Caicedo give away a penalty on his debut for Chelsea. They watched McAllister getting sent off for Liverpool, and suddenly they're thinking, we might have got the best of this. We might have got the best end of this deal. Yeah,
it's one of them where, unfortunately for McAllister and Caicedo, it is one of those where he's come on yesterday against West Ham. The team's a bit chasing the game as it is. He's got in there. I think he got into a bit of an altercation with Paquetá in the corner as well, so I think his head was a little bit gone from that. Then he makes the challenge, gives away the penalty, but it's just one of those things. Adrenaline's running. He's trying to make a point, prove a point, because 100 million is a lot of money to spend on him, but you've seen him for Brighton. He's been fantastic. And the only thing I'd say is expectation from Brighton to Chelsea is a big difference now. You're going to a club that's expected to win trophies, compete for that top four. So there's going to be more eyes on you, more pressure. You're a record transfer. But I think he's got, when you watch him play, I think he's certainly got the ability to do that and to go to another level. And as Glenn was saying there, you had Enzo Fernandez with him as well. And then I still think they maybe need one more creative midfield player. I'm not quite sure Conor Gallagher is the answer, but then Enzo can go forward and do that. Then I think they're going to be a real force. But they've got so many players in so many different areas. How do you get them all in?
Well, I think once he finds more about the individuals and the mentality of the players, and that's the thing that you need time. You know, you can go back and watch tapes of him playing, and you know he's got ability. Mudryk hasn't shown anything for Chelsea like he did when they bought him. But you know, there's a player in there waiting to come out, and it's Poch that's got to go in there and find out all these individuals. Then he knows what his best team is. Then he knows, no, this is the system that suits. That's going to take a bit of time. But as I said earlier, for Chelsea fans, that's not what they want to hear at the moment. They heard that for a whole season last year. So it's a really still a little bit in turmoil, that club at the moment.
From a manager's point of view, do you learn much about your players in pre-season? Or you learn a certain amount about them in pre-season, but do you learn the real player when the season starts?
Yeah, there's nothing like playing. You know, you can... when I cast my mind back as a manager and a player, there's pre-seasons where everything's hunky-dory, you've been playing great, you win, and you think, oh, as a manager, you think, well, yeah, lost the first 3 games.
Yeah.
And it's the other way round. You're going into a season thinking, oh, my word, we look short, we look really poor pre-season. You go and win your first 2 games and you're sitting there. It's about, you know, the players responding to the big picture, to the big stage, and that, you know, you can't find that out in pre-season when they're friendlies. You really can't.
Yeah, and they're trying to work things out as they go along with that new group of players at Chelsea. We talked about the turning point in the game, which was the penalty that was missed by Enzo Fernandez. There was all kinds of controversy around it. One of the points was, after he'd missed it, it was cleared there, you can see by Thomas Souček. What you can also see here is, as the penalty's taken, Souček has his foot on the line. That means that he is in the penalty area. He then is the player who clears the ball. The VAR has said that that is not encroaching because it didn't have a material outcome on the effect of the kick, because there were no Chelsea players near him at the time that he cleared it. That's what their reasoning is for that being the correct decision, not to force the kick to be retaken. That's what they said. OK. I didn't know that, to be honest. And I think neither did I till yesterday.
But they've caused themselves a problem there, in my opinion. There's a rule or there's not a rule. Yeah. If that goes to another player and he clears it, we know what the rule is. That is confusing it yet again. So what you do as a coach, you say, right, I've got to now cover the outside areas and make sure that a player's, you know, going to be coming in from there. Then it's retaken. You see what I'm saying? So the Chelsea players now go out wide and make a run into the box close to... Whereas they all funnel in from the D, put them outside, your offensive players outside. Some there, but so that he is in play. Yeah. And then suddenly you get a retake. Yeah. So them changing the... Well, not changing the rule, but making that rule is making it very difficult. You've now got to change, as a manager, your tactics because of a rule. I don't agree with that.
But it's almost like a rule that didn't exist until they forgot to check it.
Yeah.
That's what... Do you know what I mean?
I don't think...
That's what it feels like.
To the best of my knowledge, they did not check that in real time. It was a question that was asked subsequently, and that was the answer.
I think that's the issue. It's not good enough.
When you've got VAR and they're above us in this studio...
Don't shout.
We need a big broom. But that's not right, is it? They've not looked at that. He's either in play or he's not in it. He clears it. It should have been retaken. But as an offensive mind now, you've got to put your attackers to come in for rebounds, which they're not going to perhaps get to the ball first because they're going to be too wide. But now you're having to go do that because Souček clears it. There's a Chelsea player near there. He might have got there to get a shot in, retake the penalty. That doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't.
The other thing to point out in that, it wasn't a very good penalty from Enzo Fernandez either. And so maybe justice done in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, it all came down to fine margins.
Yeah, I mean, and with Glenn, I just think the rules are there for a reason. They implemented these rules at the start of the season, start of last season. Any encroachment into the box, it was to be retaken. And certainly if that player then intervened with the rebound, which he did, he cleared it, and they still don't give it. But I think the biggest thing about that is forgetting to check it. I think rather if they make a rule up afterwards, the fact that they forget to look at that particular incident, it's a massive moment in the football match, because, as Glenn said earlier, it could have changed the whole aspect of the second half. They forget the fact that they forget to check that particular part. It's not good enough.
It's not difficult, is it?
It's just they have caveats to all these rules that they're creating.
Well, they keep doing that.
It's very difficult.
Yeah, but the facts are, from the penalty encroachment, that is the new rule. VAR will look at that. They'll look at the goalkeeper. If the goalkeeper had moved off his, his foot off the line, they'd have retaken it. Well, they've got to be strong enough and good enough to say, well, we've got to look at that encroachment as well. The first thing, it's not rocket science, guys. Whoever clears it, let's go back and have a look. Don't worry about the other West Ham players. It's the one that clears the ball. The rules are, oh, hang on a minute, Souček's foot in there. It's got retake. That's not, it's not difficult, is it? You've got one job to do.
So you're saying that Pochettino should have won it with Chelsea? They were just hard done by then.
They were hard done by on that occasion. They might have lost 3-2 still, but but they were hard done by. And
what did you make of West Ham in that game? Because I heard a few Chelsea fans complaining that they didn't really even make West Ham play particularly well in order to get that scoreline. But did you think that West Ham played well?
I thought they played well within. They knew. Listen, David would have sat. As a manager, you think, are we going to have the ball? Are we going to have possession? Are we going to have to work at this week opening teams up because they're banked in against us? No. What we're going to have to work with in through the week training is counter. Yeah. How are we going to counter? How are we going to get close to them, press the ball, make sure there's no spaces in the 18-yard box, and then suddenly Antonio's our get-out ball, and then we go and we break from there, and then there's set plays with Ward-Prowse, now in the team. You know that his quality is going to be right on the money, whether it's a free kick wide, a corner. So suddenly you work on that, and that would have been his prep for the game against Chelsea. Other weeks, when they think we're going to have more ball, we've now got to have some movement in the last third. We've got to have little subtle runs. We've got to make overlaps. We've got blindside runs because we're going to have the ball. We're going to have to defend when we're attacking. Concentration. That never had to happen against Chelsea. They knew they were going to be outplayed with the ball. I thought they were excellent with what they did. And David Moyes would be sitting there with his staff today going, spot on, guys. It's exactly how we said we were going to play, and we've ended up winning the game.
Do you know what? I thought second half, in particular, because I thought first half Chelsea had a lot of the ball and it was going up to Antonio and it wasn't sticking. So Gerard Bowen couldn't get out, Paquetá couldn't get out.
Yeah.
But I don't know what happened at half-time. I'm guessing David Moyes would have gone in there and said, listen, there's an opportunity here. Because straight away, second half, they turned the ball into Antonio. He muscles off the defender, goes through, scores. He was strong, he held the ball up. And second half, I thought West Ham looked really comfortable. I don't think Chelsea really caused them that many problems, if I'm honest. Antonio was holding up, Bowen was getting involved, Paquetá, we saw more of him in the second half. So I thought second half they executed their game plan to a T.
I think they noticed that there was a gap, and so in between the two, the midfield line and the defending line. And if you just use your energy and your physical strength, which we know Mikel Antonio can, and he was just wonderful in the second half, and the impact that he had as well. But I think that this is what Chelsea need to work on, because obviously they are a team with lots of technique, and that's what they're expecting. But it's a horrible thing to have to face West Ham as your second game, because you're coming up against a wily coach who understands how to make the most of the weapons that he has. So whether that's physical strength, whether it's Ward-Prowse managing to do wonders from set pieces. And I think this is where it gets really tough, because they know how to find weaknesses and make the most of them. So it was always going to be difficult for them. This is where your midfield needs to be better. And unfortunately for Chelsea, I think defensively they look vulnerable, and midfield yet are to understand the duality of the role, how to secure the defence and how to provide something to attack. And right now, until that all comes together, I think they're going to find it actually easier against teams that are open, and rather than teams that are as well defended as West Ham.
Do you know, West Ham are dangerous from set plays, as you said there. So now all of a sudden with David Moyes and certainly James Ward-Prowse, they've not even got to worry about the delivery now. No, it's just about, right, get the contact on the ball, because you already know, because there was a bit of a sighter before they scored the first goal. Ward-Prowse puts into an area, he gets up and it's just a bit, and then Sanchez has to make the save. The second one, he puts it right on the money, they score from it. That's one aspect they're going to be dangerous at this season.
And Benny, as a player, as the two centre-backs go up for wide free kicks or corners, they're going up. In the past, they're hoping they're going to score.
Yeah.
They're hoping. Now they know the delivery is going to be right on the money. They think they're going to score.
Yeah.
You've got a different animal going up there then. They know that they're going to get a good delivery. Yeah. They're going to fancy themselves to put their head on it.
100%.
And I think that's the mentality of such a good set player. Taker, David Beckham had it. He's probably the best since David. And, when you got
his record.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're not even talking about his direct free kicks yet. He didn't have a chance at the weekend.
He was annoyed about that. He was like,
yeah.
well, I've got one assist from a corner, one assist from open play, and I never got a goal from a direct free kick.
But your teammates go, hang on a minute, this ball's going to be in that vicinity 10 times out of 10, let alone 9 times. We're going to get on the end of that. It's our responsibility. We fancy our chances. That's putting That's putting the car in drive, not in neutral, to go up there and hope that we're going to get the good delivery, and they might only be 7 out of 10 or 6 out of 10 in a normal circumstance.
Yeah.
This kid puts it right on the money, and that, again, gives you that belief system. Let's see how many goals they do get from set plays this year, West Ham.
Perfect purchase for them, right?
Yeah, brilliant.
It feels like a natural match between the player and the manager as well, in terms of what they need to do at that team. And it looks as though things are looking good for West Ham. They'll certainly be hoping to improve on last season's